In China, music mirrors what is acceptable in taste and behavior. Gradually, in recent years, Chinese people have been able to hear and play types of music they haven't experienced for more than a decade. Historically, Shanghai has the closest links with Western life and culture of any city in China. As yet, popular music has nothing like the pervasive influence nor anti-establishment posture that pop music enjoys in the West. But Shanghai's 12 million citizens have recently begun to receive a whole mixture of musical styles that had been absolutely forbidden during the austere years of the Cultural Revolution. Saturday evening at number 17 Cotton Mill, Shanghai. Two young mill workers find a quiet corner with glasses of orange juice where they can rehearse a sort of Chinese blues. Such variety and contrasts in music making under one roof are nothing unusual for Shanghai. Most musical occasions tend to be organized rather than spontaneous. These mill workers, having finished their Saturday shift, are trying their hand at a sort of communal dancing that was all the rage in China during the 50s. It's been revived with the help of an enthusiastic instructress. As the next shift gets underway, other workers have gone to perform an old favorite, a black American cotton-picking song called Poor Old Joe. It's not generally known that most large communes in China have music, or muzak, piped into the fields from their own commune radio stations. So a large proportion of China's 800 million field workers form the world's largest audience for music while you work. Their own resident DJs give them a sponsor's message straight from the state.
吕当乡第十届人民代表大会第一次会议隆重开幕。吕当乡第十届人民代表大会第一次会议，辣人章6日1984年1号文年，大力发展商品生产，建设具中国特色的社会主义新农村的大学形式后面，隆重开幕。450校长毕业，举行一名正式代表、58名列席代表参加了会议。大会主席头执行之日，宣布大会开始。亲爱的听众，下面请大家听苏小敏演唱歌曲《金刚之牙》。
The Jiading Commune performing troupe is self-supporting. By cutting and pasting paper bags all day, they can fund their musical activities after hours. These performers like to offer a social message to their fellow workers. In Mr. Stone Apologizes, a young troublemaker is taught a lesson. The Jiading troupe still performs music dramas with more than a hint of the pioneering spirit of the Cultural Revolution, like their Ode to the Red Lantern. This is a curious example of the recycling of Chinese culture. Most popular music in China still carries a political message. All the arts are supposed by many Chinese still to be a vehicle for political encouragement and to reflect changes in attitudes at the top. In fact, Mao's wife herself took control of all music and arts at the start of the Cultural Revolution in 1966. And anything that didn't have her personal stamp of approval was banned. Those institutions where classical music had flourished were shut down. Today, the Chinese government is renovating the temples for the curious to visit. Here, the great musical traditions of the Taoist faith were passed through generations of priests.
我们大姑9岁学的，9岁学的，父亲大姑于闽西的。那么我们下午去学的，父亲是大家的，下里。那么我媳妇大姑的，下午去学的。这姑了，一定大家里了，弟子资本家，做生意啊，做生意，要拿点费先。 上个季，那么就当出来了，这里有话了也。
These special drum rhythms were once the secret property of Taoist sages, who used them to summon up the spirits and dragons of ancient China.
在家里大家就迷糊着，那么拿筷子做出了当当，里不能发送的，假如用力了，我们也嘴也当不出来，也经常兜里，那么有些呢，政府说我是说呢。
All over China, traditional arts are reviving after their attempted annihilation during the Cultural Revolution. In the old city of Suzhou, 50 miles east of Shanghai, families who have performed the Chinese classics for generations still remember the hardships they were recently forced to suffer.
本来就是怕下乡去嘛，怕下乡去，那么就是让他学了一个专业呢，这也可以，也是一个出路。当初来讲呢，这个也是一个职业，啊，这样想的。那么那个时候呢是比较苦的，我们两个就是转业的时候啊，把工资都改了，一家7口就是挣90块钱，要7个人雇，所以生活呢比较辛苦的。
现在48粉碎了嘛，我爸爸妈妈也回到那个文艺界了，那么好像就是落实政策什么的，回到文艺界。那么现在我们在这个就是搞那个文艺呢，觉得也是挺那个的，那挺自在的，因为就是音乐吧，现在我们党中央啊，什么侯耀邦啊、邓小平啊，他们反正上台以后嘛，就是挺重视关心知识分子。十面埋伏呢，这个是一个琵琶的那个大曲，它呢反映的就是楚汉相争吧，楚汉相争。那么这个曲子呢流传于世呢就有400多年了，那么所以里边的千军万马那种奔腾的那种气势吧。
16岁开始呢，就该学了。那学个辰光呢，比较的个，有辰光就是上坡要产生响铃啊，那么就喊哪里喊等地方给你来的，那么那样子就可以发产响铃。有辰光得到深夜12点多钟啊，2点钟啊来下去。那么有辰光呢，个屋里个电线呢，并不难喊，那么就是个。比如带皮啊，他们不是那种比较硬个的个灯子手了，手对有辰光个屁股浪向只有个手板长露出来， 那么个有人管还不是，你非得在，你送偏的，偏的。
不行，他的那个眼线，那这个都看到这个里头去了，看进去，他也要弹。哎，眼线弹了，抠进去了，他也要弹。叫他小弟啊，你不要弹了，我们他小名叫小弟，我们叫他小弟啊的，他也要弹，一定让我弹。
The precision and dedication expected of Chinese performers can also be seen in a variety of popular acts at the Shanghai Youth Palace every day. Here, visiting troupes play to an audience of thousands, and entry costs just a few pence. People stay all afternoon or evening in the Youth Palace, which also offers Shanghai adolescents a well-supervised relief from their work routines.
都是业余时间，那休息时间来的。休息天嘛，到这来，娱乐吧。
我是在车间搞管理工作的。
我搞政宣的，出这个政工室里面搞宣传的。
我石油化工。
也有抽空吧。有空的时候，一般性多数时间嘛花在工作上面。
还是比较愿意的。我们在那个学习那个就是挤出来的时间，出来看看一些文艺节目。
The ancient tale of the Monkey King is given by the Beijing Shadow Puppet Company. Upstairs from the puppet theatre, the Dalong Machine Factory Troupe prepare for their concert.
这首歌呢，是我们车间里2进宫车间的一个同志写的。举行歌咏比赛呢，各个车间都搞自己都搞创作。那么他们这首歌呢，创作呢，演出的时候，全场歌咏比赛呢，效果比较好。那么我们艺术团呢，觉得这首歌也很有特色，发扬出我们大龙机器厂工人的那个精神面貌。
参加这个业余小分队呢，丰富我们自己的业余生活；另一方面呢，为开展这个车间里面的文化生活呢，提供一些我们骨干的力量。还有呢，就是还有呢，我们大家呢会到车间里面去宣传我们的厂里面的方针啊、政策啊，就这种东西。 不，没有什么额外的负担，感到很高兴，丰富了自己的业余生活嘛，没有感到什么负担的。哦，不，英语高中里面学过英语，不过学的不太好，唱的是跟你们说的一样，Chinese English。
Of course, it's not just Western pops that Shanghai music halls and radio stations offer the people. Western classical music has become a sort of cultural growth industry. Ironically, just a few years ago, such old war horses as Brahms' Fourth Symphony were totally banned during the Cultural Revolution. From 1966 to 1976, the principal conductor of the Peking Philharmonic was forbidden to play any Western music at all.
As our orchestra didn't dismiss during the time of Cultural Revolution. And we must play the normal piece, normal piece, Yang Bar Xi. Example. We must play the examples. So the orchestra not dismissed. But we're not allowed to play anything else except we call the Shajabang is a Peking opera with the orchestra accompaniment. We play the accompaniment all the time. So we lose everything. They have no technique, nobody practice, just play this. We lose everything.
For a while, Li Delun also lost his job and was sent to do manual work on a farm. It is remarkable that in the 10 years since the Cultural Revolution, Western classical music has revived to the point where orchestras, soloists, and even music academies abound. In fact, the Western classics have become a sort of Chinese cultural export. Performers and their records travel around the world with the same pride and selectivity as the great cuisines of China. Of course, it's wrong to think of Chinese music as in any way the prerogative of the majority Han people. Every region has a style of its own. Some 2,000 miles northwest of Shanghai is the province of Xinjian, between the South Russian border and Mongolia. Here live the Uyghur people, a Turkic minority still devoutly Islamic. After mosque, the community elders gather to discuss the details of tomorrow's wedding between two of their families. Here, the rhythm of life hasn't changed for centuries. Music making is spontaneous. Unlike the organized performances further east, it is still a natural accompaniment to family celebrations. As dowry discussions are concluded in the home of the bridegroom's father, beneath their window the dancing has begun. It will continue throughout the night. Even this remote community suffered badly during the Cultural Revolution, when such joyful celebrations were frowned upon as decadent and reactionary. Now they're making up for lost time. In the early hours of Sunday morning, families of the bride and groom make their way to the local market to buy gifts and food for the wedding. The people of Turfan live at the edge of the Gobi Desert. They have one of the largest free markets in China. It's run by private stallholders for private profit. There are no fixed prices, and families will bargain for what they want. A far cry from the Maoist uniformity of a decade ago. Since Islam is still the guiding force of this community, the imam is called to the bride's home to officiate at the wedding. That the demands of Islam can survive so strongly in a Marxist state would surprise not only foreigners, but even the majority of Chinese living outside this province. This does reflect the huge changes that have occurred since the Cultural Revolution. First, the priests receive customary hospitality from their host. Unlike other weddings in China, neither bride nor groom is present when the imam symbolically declares them married. In a car, borrowed for the occasion from a politician, visiting members of the groom's family have to run the gauntlet of the bride's supporters. It makes life easier if a symbolic bribe is offered. It then becomes a gift to be added to the ritual display of all the bride's presents. Women only are allowed to witness this.
Mavi yağlığı. Bilmem ne falan yiyemem. Ma rağlık şipin duhav köynüge. Bu kışlık oyuğu.
However the bride really feels about the whole thing, she must, by Uyghur custom, appear heartbroken at the prospect of leaving home. There follows several hours of ostentatious and sometimes not wholly convincing lamentations. It's only right for her entourage to be similarly affected by the prospect of the fate awaiting the young bride. She's still weeping when her uncle carries her away. An army lorry has been commandeered for friends and musicians. The confusion, spontaneity, and musical accompaniment would be unimaginable in other parts of China. The bride is still sobbing as she enters the groom's house. By the time her husband starts to dance, she's already waiting at the bedroom window. Generalizations about Chinese music or the Chinese seem absurd when such differences exist between local cultures that have evolved over thousands of years. The pagoda at Sushao in the east is a symbol of the classical Han culture which most often represents China to outsiders. Sushao has been called the Venice of China, not just for its canals, but also for the classical arts that once flourished here. In recent years, a unique form of female ballad singing has been revived. It's called pingtan. Because of the huge contrasts in regional cultures, teachers are now encouraged to introduce children as early as possible to the musical traditions of other regions. So in this Sushao nursery school, they're learning to perform in the style of the Islamic people up in Xinjian province, 2,000 miles away. In the last 30 years, cities like Sushao have undergone an industrial revolution. The picturesque canals are now used mostly for commercial heavy traffic. Like the consumer and industrial goods that make their way downriver to Shanghai, many families also made their move from provinces to big cities. In one of the poorer suburbs of Shanghai, Yan Jingyi is on his way home for a weekend visit to his mother and father. He is one of an elite few who have managed to gain entrance to the Shanghai Drama School for traditional opera.
我平时对文艺很爱好，所以我想去试试看。假如考得去嘛就考去，考不去嘛也就算了。
我开始的时候我感到这个角色不大好，是吧？最好是演老生。那么后来嘛，我想这个老师为什么要派他学这个？ 总是有道理的，对吧？要根据他的体型啊，根据他的这个平时的根据他的这个嗓子啊各方面的，所以我感到这个老师呢是因材施教的。
茶温内抬荷叶表，突抬动抬过。
是的，要下很多的苦功，不下功夫将来是不成的。一定要刻苦学习在那里。在那里，我们大多数同学都很刻苦，都希望自己将来能成才啊。
the masks these children are learning to paint come from classical antiquity. This wholehearted revival of the ancient tales of ghosts and emperors does symbolize the reintroduction of old values into modern Chinese life at all levels. So does the precision with which local opera lyrics are painstakingly instilled into a new generation. Every so often, students are allowed to try all this out on stage. They're rehearsing interrogating the spy.
我平时也想了，后来都习惯了，都住在那儿，都习惯了。大家同学之间互相谈谈、交谈，很有意思。
他本来啊，在家里的时候是吧，这一间房间也不来的，就是跟我们父母这个很亲热的，要挤在我们晚上要挤在我们这个床上睡。所以他去的时候，我也有这样的担心。他在家里爸爸妈妈很亲近的，一下子这个离开父母是吧，到这个学校里单独独立生活。我开始的时候也是心里也是很舍不得，那么为了他的前途，就只能放他去。
Once the school had been reopened, after the downfall of the Gang of Four, it was decided that a proper training for Chinese opera required all the children to devote their lives to it. Now the boys and girls eat and sleep here in a unique atmosphere of the classical performing arts of ancient music, poetry and drama. At the other end of the age scale, those who have retired from work can now enjoy classical music in the tea houses where they meet daily. They also exercise with traditional Tai Chi. It's not just on the popular, everyday level that traditional music has revived. The ancient philosophers had their own exclusive music, which can also be played today by the greatest of Chinese virtuosi.
当然，古琴也作为这个一种宫廷音乐，在宫廷里边也参加一些合奏，但是主要的是在民间，特别是在知识分子阶层， 人们作为一种提高自己的这个修养，结合某种文化和某种哲学，像儒家、道家，或者等等其他的一些哲学，结合起来。
Some of the music that Wen Guang plays dates back 3,000 years. It had exclusive rules laid down for it, like only being played in a mountain landscape or for a Taoist recluse. Music that was suitable only for a person who had the sensitivity to understand the greatest arts of all.